Thank you for the invite to come to speak to you for your summer series. It's very exciting. I wish I could have been there in person, but as you know, the world is a little different right now, different than we had expected it to be when we planned this a long time ago. Thank you to Sam for inviting me. From what I understand, I get to speak on whatever topic I want to. And so tonight, instead of picking something that might have been fun, like how cool youth ministers are, I decided instead to preach to you a sermon that I've entitled Calm. And the reason why, for me, it's my favorite is because it's one that right now I need it the most, more than any other sermon that I've ever prepared or preached. I hope that the lessons that we take away from this will benefit you. I know they have already benefited me bountifully as the months and weeks have gone by. It was well into the evening before Jesus boarded what was likely a small, open fishing craft. It would have been a vessel commonly used by fishermen such as Peter, James, and John. And Jesus had worked well into the evening, casting out demons, healing sick, listening, and teaching. No doubt he was physically drained, while in his divinity, Jesus had done many wonderful works. But in his humanity, in his finite energy, he had exhausted an enormous amount of it. Still, Jesus gave the orders to cross the other side of the Sea of Galilee. This sea is about 13 miles long and as much as 8 miles wide. She lies just over 600 feet below sea level near the northern end of the Jordan River, and Mount Hermon rises about 9,200 feet to the north, and strong northerly winds often plummet down the upper Jordan Valley with great force. When they meet the warmer air of the Galilean basin, the intensity is increased, hitting the cliffs on the eastern shore, essentially functioning as wind tunnels, causing waters beneath them to churn violently. The fact that they come quickly and without little warning makes these storms even more dangerous and frightening. The inherent danger of crossing a large body of water is mitigated, though, at least in the eyes of the disciples, by the presence of experienced fishermen. But no amount of experience could prepare them for the dangers that lied ahead. It could not have taken long for the convoy of boats to reach the deepest part of the sea, where it was at its most dangerous. Estimates are as quickly as 1 hour to get to that location. This is all the time it took for Jesus to fall into a deep sleep in the stern of the boat, that what amounted to nothing more than an old fisherman's cushion. It was at this moment that a great, violent windstorm arose. The winds twisted and swirled between the high hills and the narrow valleys, pushing and pulling the waters of Galilee. A sea whose name resembles that of a Greek word for calm was becoming a violent storm. No doubt the several disciples who were fishermen had done everything possible to save themselves. Yet the storm became so fierce that the boat was covered in waves. And Mark gives such specific details that one can only assume that he recorded an eyewitness account, possibly that of Peter, who explained that the waves were breaking over the boat so much that the boat was already filling up in Mark chapter 4, verse 37. In realizing the depth of their inadequacy and the finality of death, in utter desperation, the disciples rushed to their master and found him asleep. In disbelief and in anger, they cried out to their Lord, "Teacher, we are perishing. Save us. Do you not care?" And the creator of all the elements of all the world rebuked the wind and the sea and said, "Peace, be still." And there was a great calm. It was as though all of the earth paused to hear what the Master had to say. The winds and the waters were Gallatin, calm, placid, still. This Greek word in Mark chapter 4, verse 39 appears only 3 times in our Bibles. Mark 4, in Matthew, and also in Luke 8. Each time describing the stillness that filled the air on that night on the Sea of Galilee. That word describes a phenomenon that can only be experienced by peacefully observing still waters that have never been touched by the cares of human ambition. Waters so still you can look into your own soul as though it were a mirror. Jesus waited until this calm in verse 40 to ask his question of his disciples. Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith? This story highlights the importance of finding peace, a moment of calm in order to be able to consider the inner workings of our fears. It was not until Jesus created that great calm that he asked the piercing question, where is your faith? We are experiencing in 2020 what some have called the great pause. If you take a moment to look outside, look away from the news feed, away from the headlines, and look towards the world outside, you will see what can only be described as a phenomenon. Before businesses began to reopen and precautions were rescinded, a careless Los Angeles had clear blue skies as pollution has simply stopped. In a quiet New York City, you could hear birds chirping in the middle of Madison Avenue. Coyotes were spotted on the Golden Gate Bridge. It was as though looking on a scene to where Jesus had rebuked all of humanity, saying, "Peace, be still." We find ourselves in a peculiar time in history where we have been able to witness in high definition the thought experiment of what would happen if everything stopped. And for many of us, it is a painful and awkward pause because we no longer have the busyness as an excuse to no longer consider the weightier matters of our existence. Troubled souls don't like to be alone with their thoughts. For this reason, we avoid the calm through busyness. It's easy to close your eyes to a problem when you barely have time to close your eyes to sleep. Preoccupation makes it so easy to avoid wrestling with tough questions. That's exactly what the priest did in Luke chapter 10, verse 31. That's what he did when he looked at and passed by the naked and beaten man. He was too busy to be concerned with the plight of a lesser man. His troubles were literally and figuratively beneath him. Rather than living a life of chaos, I want to be more like my Lord, who would regularly go out to a desolate place to pray and to find the calm. As the report about Jesus went abroad, and great crowds gathered to hear him and to be healed of their infirmities, he would withdraw to desolate places and pray. Luke 5, verses 15 and 16. I stand before you today as a man who has not yet mastered the art of finding the calm, but I know someone who has. In Jesus' rebuke of the wind and the sea, we see a number of principles that will not only help us to find calm in our lives, but will also open a window to see the majesty of our God. First, to find calm, we must set boundaries. Jesus uses two words to calm the storm that was engulfing their boat: siopa, or peace, which is to refrain from speaking, and phimao, or to be still, has a much more aggressive tone, like being muzzled or silenced against your will. In Job 38, when God was answering Job's outrage with a series of rhetorical questions, he said, "Who shut in the sea with doors when it burst out from the womb? When I made the clouds, its garments, and thick darknesses, its swaddling band, and prescribed limits for it, and set bars and doors, and said, 'Thus far shall you come, and no farther, and here shall your proud waves be stayed.'" Job 38, verses 8 through 11. It is evident that the calm waters that we experience in this world are a result of boundaries God had placed on them. Likewise, to find calm, we must set boundaries. We must learn to say the word no. Without the word no, our calendars get so full that there's no time for calm. Without the word no, our to-do list gets so long there's no energy left for calm. Without the word no, our priorities become so obscure there's no interest left in calm. Without the word no, we are left with no time, energy, or interest in experiencing the majesty of our God. But secondly, To find calm, we must devote time. Commentators have often debated for centuries what the possible reasons were for Jesus to need to cross the Sea of Galilee in the dead of night. The most common being that he just needed to get away. It seems clear that everywhere Jesus went, disciples followed. Even when he set out to cross the Sea of Galilee at an inopportune time, other boats still followed him. And it can be difficult being a spiritual leader, whether it be of a church as an elder or as a minister or as a deacon or a teacher. But also it's difficult to be a spiritual leader at times of a family or even of your peers. There are times when it feels as though those around you do nothing but take and take and take, leaving your soul bone dry. And Jesus' exhaustion was at such a level that he was able to sleep through a deadly storm on a tiny fishing vessel. Think about that. Jesus was so exhausted that he slept through a storm so fierce that it terrified experienced sailors. If Jesus' ministry could leave him that exhausted, what does that say about you and me? Jesus knew that if he had not set aside time for rest, rest would never find him. And we will never experience the calm necessary for deep contemplation if we do not allow time for it. Many are the days where people have said, I will spend time with God when there is a moment of peace, only to never find peace. There's not enough time in the morning because we have to take care of our kids and get to work on time. There's no time at work because I'm working, I'm busy, or Bibles aren't allowed, or insert excuse here. There's no time for God in the evening because we have family time. We're eating or we're getting ready for bed. There's no time for God at night, well, because I'm too tired. If this describes your normal day that you try to devote to God, it will never happen. You will never find it because you do not set aside time for devotion to God. Third, to find calm, we must relinquish control. While not the same miraculous event, a similar series of events happens in Mark chapter 6. In that chapter, the disciples were in a boat without Jesus. And when evening came, the boat was out to sea, and he was alone on the land. And he saw that they were making headway painfully, for the wind was against them. And about the fourth watch of the night, he came to them, walking on the sea. He meant to pass by them, but when they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and cried out. For they all saw him and were terrified. But immediately he spoke to them and said, Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid. And he got into the boat with them, and the wind ceased, and they were utterly astounded. Peace comes when we allow Jesus to get in the boat. There is a powerful peace that comes over you when you relinquish control of a given situation. When I was in college, I took this horrible class called Anatomy and Physiology. Hardest class I've ever taken in my life. It made the human body look like an alien drawing written with Klingon. I would wait until the night before the test, and I would study and study and study late into the night at the Alkek Library, the library on Texas State campus. Eventually, I'd get to the point where I'd say, if I don't know it by now, I'm not going to know it tomorrow. And I would feel this sense of calm come over me. That's not what we're talking about. That wasn't peace. That's denial. The calm we're talking about is when we recognize what is and what is not within our control. Here's what I cannot control. I cannot control the media coverage. I cannot control the stock market. I cannot control real estate. I can't control who the Cowboys draft in the first round. I can't control how tall or short I am. I can't control my family history of various medical conditions, among a host of other things that are outside of my control. But there is one more thing that is outside of my control. And it's beautiful. The price that was paid to save my soul. No matter what I do, no matter how much I stress, no matter how much I try to prove my righteousness, it never changes the fact that Jesus died on the cross and He paid His price for our sins, for my sins. Realizing one's own inadequacy is the first step to turning to Christ. When we turn over control and recognize what is and is not within our sphere of influence, we are released from the pressure to be what we were never designed to be. You are a child of God. Everything else is a needless weight that so easily besets us. Finally, to find calm, we must embrace impossibilities. Setting boundaries and finding calm allows you time to experience the awe of God. By awesome deeds you answer us with righteousness, O God of our salvation, the hope of all the ends of the earth and the farthest seas, the one who by His strength established the mountains, being girded with might, who stills the roaring of the seas, the roaring of their waves, the tumult of the peoples, so that those who dwell at the ends of the earth are in awe at your signs. You make the going out of the morning and the evening to shout out for joy. Psalm 65, verses 5 through 8. The beauty of finding peace and finding calm is that it gives you an opportunity, without distraction, to consider the deep internal conflicts within your soul. I love the great outdoors. I love to hunt. I love to sit under the live oak tree on my parents' property in Texas while the sun rises up, as the world around me wakes from its sleep. I get to hear the first birds sing their song. I get to see glimpses of life searching the air for signs of danger. I get to feel in that moment the morning sunlight when it first touches my cold, shivering skin. This is possible only because I am submerged in nature. No distractions, phones turned off, without a human sound nearby, not even the sound of vehicles commuting to work. I am alone in a desolate place with creation and my thoughts. And every single time in those moments of solitude, my mind is drawn towards my Creator. And my heart breaks because no matter how long it has been too long. It has been too long since I have thought about my Creator undistracted. It has been too long since I have thought about the price that was paid for my sins. It has been too long since I have thought about those whom I interact with every day who do not know my Savior. And it has been too long since I have thought about those who I have not told about my God. When we find calm, it can be painfully uncomfortable to be alone with our thoughts. But it is so worth it to contemplate and to meditate on our God. I don't want to leave you with just a couple prompts of what peace is and how to find it. I want to challenge you. This week, especially knowing how unrest grows on a daily basis, I want you to take 30 minutes each day to find the calm. Now, parents, this may be difficult for you, I know, especially while kids are home from school. Moms, dads, you're going to have to work together. Dads, you're going to have to take the kids and leave mom to go somewhere else. Moms, as many of you already do, you'll have to take time for the kids so that the dad can go by himself to find the calm and the peace. You're going to have to turn off the TVs. You're going to have to turn off the news feeds. You're going to have to close Facebook and Twitter. Put your phone in a drawer. Take time to set boundaries and set a time to relinquish control and embrace the impossibilities of what God does every single day so that you can be alone with your thoughts and to be alone with God. And when we do this, we will find a calm that allows us to see the majesty of God. I love you. I wish that I could be there with you right now. But as we consider all the things in our life, all the things that rile us up, all the things that stress us out, that bring shame to our souls, maybe you're thinking about something specifically in your life right now. I encourage you to come to your Savior now.